I'm attorney Susan Williams, and today we are talking about the crime of embezzlement in the state of South Carolina. And to start off, you may be wondering, what is embezzlement? What does that mean? Well, sometimes people call it white-collar crime, and it basically means that someone has entrusted you with some property or some money for a specific purpose, and instead of using that property or that money for that purpose, you take it and use it and keep it for yourself, and you have no intention of ever returning that property to that person or to that company. So let's look a little bit more specifically into this in South Carolina, and I'm going to be referring to my notes, but basically an example would be when an employee is entrusted in keeping money or property that doesn't belong to them. It's against the law for that employee to keep those funds for themselves. So if you work at a bank and you're entrusted with moving money around for safekeeping that money, and instead of taking it to a section of the bank like the vault that you're supposed to be taking it into, you put it into your coat pocket and you take it home, and you don't ever return the money, and you don't ever have the intent of returning the money. You can be charged with embezzlement if the state can prove that the elements of the crime. So it becomes a little bit of a gray area because sometimes people have the permission to originally be allowed to deal with the funds, but the state would have to prove that the crime actually occurred. So what are the things that the government or the state has to prove in South Carolina for embezzlement? Well, the government has to prove that the employee illegally manipulated the resources, the property, or the money that the victim put their trust in into that person to safekeep that money or property. The state also has to prove that the person accused of taking the money got access to the property through an agreement or an arrangement through the victim's employee and the victim. So the victim is the person who is now out of the money or property. So, and finally, the state must prove that a person accused intended to permanently take that property from the owner. In other words, the person took the money, they had no intention of ever giving it back. So, is hiring a lawyer important if you're accused of embezzlement? Yes, embezzlement case is not always black and white, and a criminal lawyer can help you understand what defenses you may have. Something as simple as a human error or a mistake can mean someone is wrongfully accused or charged with embezzlement, and an attorney can help advise you of your defenses, if you have any defenses, and fight unfair presumption that the funds have been embezzled. And an attorney can also subpoena business records. They can subpoena accounts, emails, texts, communications, and other correspondence from your employer, possibly, and get access to records that can help prove your case. Now, what are the potential penalties for a conviction for embezzlement? Well, the penalties depend on the amount of money that was taken or the amount of property that was taken. A lot of folks ask me, what am I facing? Am I going to jail? Am I going to prison? Am I going to have this on my permanent record? Am I going to be a convicted felon? And we're getting ready to talk about that right now. If the value of the goods or the money taken is $10,000 or more, it is a felony in South Carolina if you're convicted. You could be facing 0 to 10 years in jail if you're convicted, and the judge can fine you in his or her discretion. The victim in the case will be allowed an opportunity to address the judge, and during certain phases of the case, if they choose to, under the Victims' Rights Act. Now, if the value of the goods or money taken is less than $10,000, It is also a felony in South Carolina. You could be facing 0 to 5 years in jail if you were convicted. You could be facing a fine and jail time. And the judge can fine you in his or her discretion. And again, the victim will be allowed to address the court through the victim's advocate or personally in court at your day of sentencing if they so choose under the Victims' Rights Act. Finally, there are different types of federal embezzlement charges, and embezzlement isn't just a state charge. You can be charged with embezzlement in federal court, and stakes obviously can be much higher in federal court, and there are certain things that the prosecution or the state will be looking at in order to determine, are we going to charge this person with a state charge or a federal charge? And some of the factors that are involved in determining whether or not your case will be a state or federal case will be how many people were involved in this conspiracy or in this embezzlement. Would it be considered a conspiracy? What was the time period involved in this federal embezzlement charge? Does the embezzlement cross state lines? Does your case involve a contract with state or federal government? Will you be responsible for the amount that you took, or will you also be roped into what your co-defendants took? Were you a major ringleader in the case? Were you aware that other folks were involved? So if you're needing help with an embezzlement charge, feel free to contact me. I'm attorney Susan Williams, and for more information, head on over to my website at www.swilliams-law.net.